All right, we're going to go get started with the meeting of the Regional Flood Control District. It's confirmed that we have Mayor Hardy on the phone.
He is not on at the moment.
Not on, okay.
But if he comes on, we'll alert the board.
Very good. We will await him if he's able to jump on. All right.
Item number one is comments by the general public.
Very good. This is the first time set aside for public comment. This time is limited to comments on items that are on today's agenda. Those wishing to speak on posted agenda items, now is your opportunity. Please come forward to the microphone, provide your comments, and state your name for the record. You'll be limited today to 3 minutes for your comments. Is there anyone who would like to provide public comment? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the first public comment period.
Thank you. Item 2 is action to approve the agenda with the deletion of any items. Mr. Chair, the agenda is in order for approval.
Can I get a motion? Move to approve. All right, there's a motion to approve the agenda. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Item number 3 is action to approve the minutes of the March 9, 2023 meeting. Mr. Chair, the minutes are in order for approval.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion. Move to approve. All right, there's a motion to approve the minutes of the March 9th, 2023 meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 4 is discussion and possible action to reschedule the May 11, 2023 board meeting or take action as deemed appropriate. Mr. Chair, as we do every year, in order to keep our meeting together with RTC's meeting, they have to move their meeting to the third Monday so they can do their public hearing for their budget. So staff would recommend that we reschedule the meeting to May 18th, 2023.
Okay. Do you need a motion or just direction?
I think we need a
Motion. Okay. All right, enter motion. All right, there's a motion to reschedule the May 11th board meeting to the May 18th. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 5 is to discuss the general manager's monthly report. I do have a couple of things I want to talk about today in the monthly report. We had some flood events during the month of March. So I was going to just go over what had happened and let the board know what was going on. The first thing I wanted to talk about is the Echo Canyon Reservoir. This is a shot of the Colorado River Basin Forecast website that provides water level gauges throughout the Colorado River Basin. Located within there is the, I'm sorry, it's got an auto timer on there. Let me go back. The Echo Canyon Reservoir is located upstream of Clark County and Lincoln County, about 100 miles north of us. This is a national park. It's a man-made reservoir. It's used for fishing and the like, and it has a significant amount of water in it due to snow melt and rainfall that we've been receiving. Is there a way to stop that, Andy? It's going faster than I'm talking, sorry. What had happened is because of the atmospheric rivers that we've been seeing in California, some of that rainfall is making its way over to Nevada. This reservoir is holding more water than it usually does. It does have an outlet, and you can see the water flowing out of the pipe at the bottom of the embankment there. And there's also a spillway there that we call Morning Glory Spillway. It's basically a vertical pipe that extends vertically up, and the water just, when it gets high enough, goes into that pipe. Those are flowing. The problem is that there's a spillway, and let me just go to the next slide here, that is on the north side of the embankment that actually activated in March. So water actually ran around the north side of the embankment. It's kind of lower there, so it acts as a spillway. As the water rises up, it flows out there as opposed to going over the embankment, and you can see all the erosion there that had occurred as a result of that flow. And just to the left of this picture, there's a roadway that washed out. All of this water that spills out or drains out of this eventually makes its way down the Meadow Valley Wash to the Muddy River, which would flow through the Overton and Logandale area up in northern Clark County. The spill itself is really not that big a deal, but what concerns us is that this embankment is, if the flow gets too high, the embankment could erode and there could be a failure. And if there was a sudden release of flow, that would be a serious issue for us. Just having the spillway activated isn't that big of an issue for us. I don't want anyone to panic. It's just something that we're kind of keeping our eye on. The gauge, we have a gauge downstream of this. This is our Meadow Valley wash gauge, which is located in Clark County. This gauge is normally dry, 360 days out of the year usually. But it had, because of that spillway activation, it had water flowing over it for about 4 days straight, 8 inches to 10 inches of water, which again isn't that much. I mean, that just flows through the Muddy River. It's not a big deal. It's not a flood potential. The big concern is if that embankment were to fail. And so we're just kind of keeping an eye on things. There's a lot of snowpack to the north of us, and as that snow melts, we're going to be keeping an eye on that reservoir up north of us. And if we see an issue, we'll start raising the red flags and let people know what's going on. We're also concerned about the city of Mesquite with Virgin River. There's the snowpack, as we all know, is quite high. And as that melts, or if we get rain on snow, which causes the snow to melt very quickly, we can have flooding. And so we're really concerned about Virgin River. And we've already had a flood event in Mesquite. Some water in the Virgin River went past a temporary berm that's been built up there. We did alert the Mesquite Public Works about that, and they were able to stage some equipment and do some flood fighting there. So the concerns we have really, if the Echo Canyon Reservoir is full, it has about 1,100 acre-feet of water. That's quite a bit of water. If that embankment were to fail, as I mentioned, and there was a sudden surge of that water coming down through the Meadow Valley wash, it does have to travel 100 miles, so there's attenuation of flow, and it will reduce the peak flows because it has to travel so far. But we would be concerned about that, obviously, if it were to happen. It'd take about 18 hours for the water to travel from that reservoir down to Clark County.
Question?
Yes.
Can you punch me?
You're good.
I am good. Thank you. What are we doing, what type of materials preventatively are we doing to the basin? I mean, is there any new material after all these years since that was built to go ahead preventatively and
We don't have any plans for that. I mean, obviously it's in Lincoln County, so we don't really have jurisdiction, and it's also a state park. But we have reached out to the Nevada Dam Safety people. We got the emergency action plan from them, which is how we learned how the basin was constructed. And so they're aware of the issues up there. They were concerned when the spillway activated that it was eroding out some, but they said that it was working as designed essentially. However, it's not designed for a huge amount of flow. It's designed for about 12,000 cubic feet per second to go over that spillway. So I think really what we need to do is just monitor that predicted flow, and if we see a high peak there, then we'll really need to keep an eye on it and reach out to our state partners to make sure that everything is okay, and if they're monitoring it, to let us know what's going on.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, but what about federal funds or something that's been ongoing? There's so much flooding around the country. What has been done in research in situations such as this, the materials that are available to shore up dams and walls, and then aren't there federal funds that we or Lincoln County could go after at this point and that we could help them?
There are funds available likely. However, I don't think that they really feel there's an issue to be addressed at this point. It's just something that we need to monitor.
Okay.
If it gets worse, or if there's another spill, then maybe more action needs to be taken. But at this point, it's just something we just kind of need to keep an eye on.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm by no means an expert, but Mayor, just for you to know, I mean, I fish at Echo Canyon, Eagle Valley, Sunnyside. There's a series. I mean, there's a whole bunch of earthen retaining dams all across central to mid-central Nevada, and I guess all of them are going to be at some point to some extent at risk because of this record snowfall in many places. This is just one that I guess what you're paraphrasing is this is one that might impact us if anything happens, basically.
That's correct.
And there's just a whole bunch of others that might impact, other municipalities, right, or other localities. But this is the one that might impact us. I do have one question. Do we have any forecast as to? I mean, it was like 92 degrees here just a couple days ago, right? So instead of there being a nice, gentle gradual raise, I mean, we see a steep spike, which has got to be playing, havoc with the normal way that things melt. I mean, normally, we have just a gradual rise in temperature, and you have, the spring flow. Are we getting any forecast that there's going to be like a sharp spike and then a really weird, massive snow melt?
Well, you bring up a good point. If the temperatures rise up quicker than we would like to see, we get a rapid snow melt, and then again we can have rain flowing then on or dropping on the snow as well, causing it to melt even quicker. So that's definitely a concern. It's a concern not only for this area but also upstream of Mesquite.
Mount Charleston is probably going to be an issue then?
Mount Charleston, to some extent, they're pretty well protected right now. There's a berm that was built as part of a core project up, I think it was built by the state actually, in conjunction with the Corps. After the Carpenter 1 fires in 2014, that berm is still there to protect the developed areas up there. So I'm not as worried about Mount Charleston, to be honest. And then if any water makes it down into the valley, we got detention basins already that will help control that water. So more worried about the Virgin River up along Mesquite and the Muddy River. Lots of things to just kind of monitor at this point. I don't want anyone to panic, but it's something we need to keep an eye on. One other issue that I wanted to bring your attention, on March 15th, there was a pretty significant storm actually down in Laughlin, the other end of Clark County. This storm, you can see our gauges there. We have 4 gauges on our side of the river, on the Nevada side of the river, that those are the total rainfall amounts that were measured on that day. The 0.86 is the highest rainfall amount, which you can see, which isn't really that much. It was kind of spread out over a longer time frame, and so it wasn't very intense. So we weren't really that concerned about this storm. But it turned out the center of the storm kind of followed the path of these blue arrows here. And so it kind of bypassed our gauges. The most intense part of the storm bypassed our gauges, and it actually occurred between our gauges and the developable area of Laughlin. So this little box that's popping up here, I'm gonna zoom into this area. That's where the little resort corridor is in Laughlin, where the hotels and casinos are located. I'm gonna zoom in there a little bit. And so right at that location, there's a number of washes that come together into one kind of larger wash that flows south of the outlet mall you see there, and it crosses over to Casino Drive and then flows through the parking area of the Edgewater and the Colorado Bell. It was designed that way years ago when these hotels were built, I think in the early 90s. They put a big pipe in. It's a 102-inch pipe, which is not small, but that pipe cannot handle a larger storm event. So the pipe did take some flow, but what it couldn't take overtopped Casino Drive, and it flowed through their parking area, and it flowed between the buildings out to the Colorado River. The Bullhead is on the other side of the river in Arizona. The storm was actually even more intense on the Bullhead side. They had some issues over there as well. There were no injuries or deaths associated with this storm. People, despite our multiple warnings, still tried to drive through that water on Casino Drive. Some people got stuck, had to be rescued. There was a swiftwater rescue on the Bullhead side where a guy wound up in a channel, and he managed to get on a tree, and the first responders lowered a ladder to him and were able to rescue him. So I guess one thing I want to point out here is that there is some social media. There's a YouTube video in particular that was produced by somebody. We don't know who it was. It's kind of a robotic voice. It almost seemed like it was an artificial intelligence thing put it together. But they said that businesses were flooded. They said homes were flooded. They said people died. They said the Colorado River overflowed its banks. None of that happened. And so I was getting people calling me saying, hey, what's going on down in Laughlin? And I'm trying to tamp down what happened, what actually happened on the ground versus what was being spread through social media. So I guess the point is, be careful what you watch on. If you're not looking at a website from a reputable news agency, be careful what you're watching. But that said, it still was pretty bad. This is a picture of the wash looking west, going right, from Casino Drive looking west where it kind of enters the roadway. You can see cars were trying to drive through it. Again, more shots of cars just driving through the flooded areas. Obviously, we recommend you don't do that. If a car were to get swept up into this, or if a person tried to walk through it, they'd get swept into the Colorado River. So it was a significant event, and it's not something to...
Steve, do we help with the cleanup after this, or is that the city's responsibility?
Just in the public rights of way. So the roadways were all being cleaned out. There was a lot of mud left over at the end of this, and so Public Works was out there, I think the same day, actually working on cleanup. But as far as the parking lot and everything else,
That's ours.
that's
Okay.
on the
Thank
private developer. A couple more shots of people just driving through the flooded areas.
Cast the side down. Wow.
Yep, not a good idea. So,
Now, the township of Laughlin is in the county, so there's not actually quote unquote a city of Laughlin, so it's all in the county.
Oh, that was Mayor Hardy clarifying that Laughlin
Right.
isn't a city, it's just part of Clark County.
that's right, it's unincorporated. We do have a detention basin proposed here. The blue you see there is a little sediment basin in that 102-inch pipe I had mentioned that was built by the developers when they built the hotels that got overwhelmed. That basin is proposed on our master plan, and there's some levees you see going to the south to catch that more southerly wash and bring it into the basin. Once this is built, the flows out of that basin will match what the capacity is of that 102-inch pipe, and everything should stay underground at that point. But this is on our plan. It's not on the 10-year plan at this point, so it's going to be a few years or a number of years before it gets built, but there is a solution that is proposed to take care of this eventually. That basin, just so you know, got an inflow of about 4,600 cubic feet per second, which is about the same flow rate that's in the Flamingo Wash that flows through Commissioner Sigerbloom's district. So quite a bit of flow coming through here.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask, what's the estimated cost on that?
I didn't look up the estimated cost, but I would say it's in the range of 15 million, probably, depending on the spillway size and that type of thing.
We get credit for that water going back in the...
Unfortunately, no. I'm sorry, we don't. And that's the end of my presentation.
Gosh,
Any
look at
questions?
that.
Thank you, Mr. Parrish. Any other questions? Seeing none?
I do. I wanted to thank you, Mr. Parrish. When the river did come out of its banks, the city of Mesquite was notified 2 days before that this event was going to take place. They were able to get sandbags ready, and it saved a lot of problems in the city. So good job, and thank you very much for making sure that when an event's coming, the people know it is so they can prepare for it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Councilman. Anyone else? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Parrish.
Part 2 of your agenda is the consent agenda. These are items 6 through 11 and are considered to be routine and may be acted upon in one motion if the board so desires.
All right, entertain a motion. All right, there's a motion to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, Mayor. Motion carries.
Item number 12 is action to approve the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget and authorize the general manager to request the Clark County Chief Financial Officer to submit the budget to the state on behalf of the district or take action as deemed appropriate. Mr. Chair, we have prepared the 2024 budget and we have a presentation ready to go. Jessica Honors here to present for us. Go ahead, Jessica.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I'm pleased to present the district's proposed budget for fiscal year 2024. The agenda backup includes detailed information that supports the budget. The district's budget includes funds that address operations, maintenance, debt, and capital projects. The tentative budget is expected to be filed with the Nevada Department of Taxation prior to April 15th, and a final budget will be filed on or before June 1st. As in the past, the budget will be submitted to the state with the Clark County budget submittal. As part of the budget process, historical analysis of sales tax as well as economic projections are made by the district to estimate future revenues. This chart shows a rolling 12-month view of sales tax revenue received from inception to date, where each month is a sum of the previous 12 months. Since 2012, Southern Nevada's economy included strong employment and population growth, robust consumer spending, increased personal income, and high taxable sales. However, starting in 2020, you see the impacts due to the pandemic, followed by a very sharp rise in sales tax revenue. In the last several months, we have received record sales tax receipts. However, since sales tax is the district's primary source of revenue, we are mindful the adverse changes in the economy can impact future tax receipts. The next slide provides a more detailed view of sales tax focusing on fiscal year 2021 and forward. The gray bars represent actual sales tax revenue for fiscal years 2021 and 2022. The green bars represent our revised estimate for fiscal year 2023 and our projected sales tax for fiscal year 2024. As shown in the chart, for fiscal year 2023, we project sales tax revenues at $154.2 million, a 6.3% increase over the FY23 budget of $145. In fiscal year 2024, we anticipate sales tax revenues will start to level out. As a result, we expect sales tax at $158.9 million, which is a 3% increase over the FY23 revised estimate. Resources. In fiscal year 2024, district resources are estimated to total $161 million as shown in the chart. As this illustration shows, the largest share is the district's primary funding source. This is 1/4 of 1% of Clark County sales tax. As I previously mentioned, sales tax revenues are projected to be $158.9 million. Additional resources are budgeted at $2.1 million, which is primarily comprised of interest earnings. Expenditures. In fiscal year 2024, we are requesting expenditure authority in the amount of $494.6 million for all district funds. Of the nearly $495 million, pay-as-you-go projects, which are funded directly from sales tax revenues, represent 68% or $338.3 million. Projects from existing bond funding are budgeted at $76 million or 15% of expenditures. In the 2024 budget, there are no new bond proceeds programmed. Combined pay-as-you-go and bond funding expenditures total 84% of district expenditures at $414.4 million. Later in the presentation, I will discuss capital project expenditures in more detail. Now, continuing on with the district's total expenditures. Debt service includes principal, interest, and other payments related to our 6 outstanding bonds. We are requesting debt service expenditure authority in the amount of $48.2 million to meet debt obligations. For our annual maintenance work program, we are requesting budget authority in the amount of $20 million to provide funding for flood control maintenance. This program is designed to ensure that flood control facilities and the master plan are maintained in a manner that maximizes their useful life and ensures their operation at design capacity during a storm event. While nearly 97% of our expenditures are dedicated to flood control infrastructure, only 3% is programmed for operations, which accounts for salaries, benefits, professional services, services and supplies, and operating capital. We are requesting operating authority in the amount of $12 million. These 5 components make up the $494.6 million in total expenditures. This slide further illustrates district operations. It shows a relationship between sales tax revenue, operating expenditures, and the number of full-time equivalent employees from fiscal year 2016 through 2022, including a projected view for fiscal years 2023 and 2024. The blue bars represent sales tax revenue. The gray bars at the bottom of the chart represents district operating expenditures, and then the white line represents the number of full-time equivalent employees. I'd like to point out this year's budget includes title adjustments to 3 positions. These proposed requests are detailed in your backup. Additionally, operating expenditures are planned to remain less than 10% of sales tax revenue, as they have throughout the district's history. Project expenditures. As I mentioned earlier, approximately $414.3 million is budgeted for ongoing and future flood control projects. This is by far the largest share of our total expenditures. Ongoing project commitments for open interlocal contracts are budgeted at $206.3 million. Future projects are budgeted at $208 million, which includes pay-as-you-go resources directly from sales tax revenues, existing bond proceeds, and up to $1.6 million for new local drainage projects. Flood control projects continue to be designed and constructed throughout Clark County. Ongoing projects include 42 design projects and 11 construction projects. Including items on this agenda, funded open interlocal contracts total nearly $456 million. By the end of the current fiscal year, approximately $250 million will be spent on those ongoing projects, and there will be $206 million remaining to pay. If we are able to complete these ongoing projects in fiscal year 2024, we estimate an economic benefit for our community of over 2,400 jobs will be created or sustained. Future projects will be specifically identified and prioritized in the 10-year construction program, which is scheduled to be presented to the board in June. This slide provides a summary of the district's proposed budget. The budget before you today, if approved, will give the district expenditure authority totaling $494.6 million. Additional details are in your backup. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much for your very detailed presentation. We appreciate it. Any questions from the board? Push your button.
So I know North Las Vegas has been having a pilot program to hire private contractors to protect the wash. Does this budget include anything for something like that in unincorporated Clark County?
Yes, it actually is included in all of the budgets. For the maintenance work program is where the budget is included for the security program. We've already received the tentative budgets for all of the entities, so that will be presented in June. Our engineers are currently reviewing everything right now.
Okay, so in June we'll be able to get more details?
Yes, I think there's budget money available for the security, and then we'll work with each of the entities to determine if each section of channel or wash is, meets the criteria that was established to allow for security to be done.
And also, does this budget, and I don't know if you can say it now, include anything for the Orchard flood control project on Sunrise Mountain?
That is programmed on the 10-year construction program. They haven't requested funding for that yet. They're still trying to get their plans to 90%, get all the prerequisites for funding done.
Okay, when you say they, you talk about our Public Works?
Yes, sir,
Okay.
Clark County.
All right, good. I know where to go then. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilman?
No, I just want to thank you and your team for putting together a really good presentation. The one thing I've come to really appreciate is a good financial team that can put together these budgets. This just reflects why I'm so proud to be part of this organization. You have a lean, mean operation. I don't think you'll see too many entities that have such a that they actually do what they've been designed to do and have very little, on the way of fat. If this is an athlete, this guy would not be able to swim because it'd sink down to the bottom of the pool because there is no fat here. If there's nothing, if no one else has anything to say, I'd like to make the motion to approve.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, if I could read a recommendation in the record. Staff would recommend that the board accept this tentative budget as the final budget and then it be submitted through Clark County to the state.
That's my motion.
Very good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Item 13 is action to evaluate the performance of the general manager, adopt management goals and objectives for 2023, and adopt recommendations from the committee to adjust compensation or take action as deemed appropriate. Mr. Chair, this board appointed a committee to review the performance of the general manager. We met last month, went through all of the results of the strategic plan and went over the strategic plan for the following year. There was a recommendation that was provided by the committee, which we're bringing back to the board today, which included a 3% COLA for me and a 3% merit increase.
Very good. I appreciate those who participated on the evaluation committee, and very much appreciate you, Ms. Parrish, and for assembling the wonderful team that we heard about, and really leading this organization. We like organizations that are no drama, so we appreciate that. And you guys do a fantastic job, and you are truly a great leader for this organization. Anyone want to comment from the evaluation committee?
Just, my understanding is a lot of that is actually gonna have to go to your PERS, so you're not gonna feel anything in your pocket.
Thank you. Yes, I understand that.
And if I might, Mr. Chairman, you have been outstanding. We just really appreciate all that you do, and during the hard times and challenges, you're a remarkable man, and we appreciate what you do.
Well, thank you for those comments.
Mr. Chairman, if you'll allow me, actually, what it must be noted is that the chairman here, he is not just a leader, he's actually a leader he is the leader in the field. Can you explain that position you were picked for by a very large jury of your peers?
Yes, I was elected president of the National Association of Flood and Stormwater Management Agencies, more easily referred to as NAFSMA. It's a nationwide organization that's made up of public works agencies and flood control districts across the country. There's about 130 members. So it's public works agencies and, general managers and, directors of public works all attend those meetings similar to what we have here in Las Vegas.
Very impressive. And again, as my colleagues have pointed out, you've done an outstanding job. You've assembled really a fantastic team around you, and that's leadership defined.
Very good. The mayor was asking how many years you have with flood control.
I started in 2000, so 23 years at flood control, and I worked for Clark County Public Works actually for 8 years before that.
I think you came in right after Oscar became mayor, so you're almost a quarter of a century, too.
That's right.
And you've aged very well.
He was on our board.
Great.
Very good. Do you want to make a motion?
To make a motion to approve.
All right, there is a motion to approve the evaluation committee's recommendations of a 3% salary increase and a 3% cost of living adjustment for the next fiscal year.
Aye.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all for those comments, and thanks to the committee members for participating in that. I really appreciate the feedback. Item 14 is comments by the general public.
This is the second time set aside for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak to the board with regards to matters before the Regional Flood Control District, now is your opportunity. Please come forward to the microphone to provide your comments and state your name for the record. Your comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Anyone wishing to step forward? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the second final public comment period, and we are adjourned.